Hi, this is Joe again with another review. For the sake of this review, I am going to be discussing the very first special, Breaking the Magician's Code, Magic's Biggest Secrets are finally revealed. Now, the reason why I'm doing this, of course, those of you who have subscribed to my channel know I previously done a review on this, but it was an overview of the entire series, which consists of 19 actual episodes, including the original specials. Well, for the sake of this video, I'm going to be discussing the original special, which is coming up on the 25th anniversary just next week. Actually, on Thanksgiving will be on the exact date, the 25th anniversary. Well, that's why I'm doing this video to discuss the 25th anniversary of the very first Max Magician special. And of course, which originally aired on Monday, November 24th, back 1997, 3 days before Thanksgiving, for 1997. And that was, at the time, it was the highest rated special in the history of Fox television, because it did air on Fox. At least the first 6 shows aired on Fox, and then the next 13 actually aired on UPN, on what was then retitled My Network Television, after the UPN merged with the WB network. But for this video, I'm only going to be discussing and focusing on the first special, which, like I just mentioned, was the highest rated special in the history of Fox television. And the next day, everybody was talking about it, whether it be in school or on the radio. There was this public radio show here in New York, where we're from, called the Scott and Todd Show, which eventually, years later went off the radio station, and there's no more WPOJ radio in New York. That was the station they were on. And the whole time I was listening to them, they were all talking about this special for like an hour and a half. I was listening to them, they were all talking about this show. And I did see most of it as it aired, but then when they replayed it, excuse me, when they replayed it, they aired the first show, then a brand new second show after that. And then what I didn't know was that it eventually came out, when the news came out, when the ratings came out, that was the highest rated special in the history of Fox television, which was huge. It was surprising because at that time in the mid to late 90s, when the show was on the air, or when the show originally aired, like I said, November 24th, 1997, practically the entire week, most of the programming of primetime television was magic specials. They had Les Byrne had a show, Penn Teller had a show on. Completely different show than the one that's currently running now on the CW network. But they had a show on that time. NBC had a show called The World's Greatest Magic, which was a 2-hour show. And you had this little show, Magic's Secrets Finally Revealed. And I didn't think to record it at the time originally, unfortunately. But I did record, like I said, when it re-aired, and 3 months later in February. Because no one expected this show where a magician revealed how all the tricks, how every single illusion that they show, how they reveals how that they actually done, which was never done, not only on television but in the history of magic, which is a long history. And magicians had this unwritten code that they want to review how the tricks are done. So what happened? When an interesting backstory, like really 2 different stories about how the show was conceived. One story was the producers of this special and the eventual series that aired in 2008, 2009. They went around to different magicians and see if they could actually hire somebody who was willing to break the magician's code and review all the tricks. Well, they're very unsuccessful for a long time to do this, for someone to do this show. And then there was this other magician who was like a lounge magician in Las Vegas. His name was, I'm going to give it away anyway, Valentino, who was working constantly in Las Vegas with a lounge act. and he was wanting to become a famous magician. Even though there's a famous video on YouTube where he was actually on, I think it was the Merv Griffin show or the Mike Douglas show. He was doing his sleight of hand tricks. I think it was the Merv Griffin show, and he was wanting to become famous because during the 80s and early 90s, David Copperfield became famous for doing shows on television, particularly on CBS. He had a long-standing. He did, I don't know how many specials altogether David Copperfield did, and so people were fascinated. Wow, how did he do all these tricks? So Valentino was actually, the second story was that Valentino was going around to different television producers and TV networks, wanting to do a show on how he reveals the tricks, because he felt that that one of the other stories was where Valentino was concerned, that he was not being successful, was being very frustrated because all these magicians who didn't have half the talent that he had, at least he felt, were all getting these TV deals, and he was not getting anything. He's been around for years and years and years. He's not getting anywhere. He does like a third-rate lounge act in Las Vegas, and he's not getting anywhere. And meanwhile, we have guys like David Copperfield, Les Burns getting all these television specials, and there's big multi-million-dollar contracts to do magic specials on television, and he is getting host, pretty much. So he decides to shop this idea around that he reveals tricks on television. So and that's how it's like a merging of these two stories. Is how Breaking the Magician's Code came to being on the Fox television network. Now, of course, the show was hosted and narrated by Mitch Pileggi, who was an actor who was famous for being on The X-Files. And he hosted not only the original 4 specials with Valentino, because Valentino did reveal what he looked like in the 4th special, but for not only he hosted it, but he also narrated, tell the viewers what's going on with these tricks, and then it tells you, even though the magician Valentino and his assistants that were used on the show will actually show you how it's done on the show, but Mitch Pileggi was the one who was telling you how the tricks are actually done. First he describes how it's performed, then they show you how the tricks are done, but with Mitch Pileggi narrating it for the whole thing. Well, the first special, I know it's a longer introduction, almost 8 minutes away, so it was the very first trick the Max Magician show, and of course he didn't want to reveal who he actually was, so he got dressed up in an all black outfit, mask, and gloves and everything, and it's wearing a spooky mask with white lines all over it, and they called him the Max Magician. So the magician, here comes the Max Magician doing the next trick, and that type of thing. And while the first trick, and now dragging this thing out, the very first trick they showed was turning a lady into a tiger trick in a cage, and I thought it was an interesting trick, because I think I did see that on one of David Copperfield shows, and then of course in the first special you also did a couple of episode tricks that and it was pretty much consistent to the 4, at least the first 3 shows, where Max Magician is showing how a trick that Harry Houdini had performed. And of course the second special, which I know I'm getting ahead of myself, the second special showed one of Houdini's famous tricks, which was the Chinese water torture escape, which was the main trick in the second special. Well, like I said, I'm kind of trained mostly in the first one, in this video. And what he did was, he also did the Chinese lantern trick, and those are the 2 opening tricks in the opening segment, which each segment is about maybe 10 minutes long. The 2 tricks, and then maybe a classic illusion in between the 2 tricks. So he did that, and then they go to a commercial, and then they come back and they did the levitating a woman, which is of course you see on every magic show, no matter who the magician is, always does a levitating a woman trick. And they actually show you how they did it. And it was actually, she's laying on a platform which is hoisted up in the air by a forklift, by a magical forklift operator. And of course, and also they show you how the sleight of hand and how he does the rings. The reason why you do this big rings is to prove to the audience that they're not using wires or cables to lift the woman up. But they show you how the magician manipulates the ring so you go around the bar that's holding the woman up. So of course, you always want to know how they do the levitating a woman trick without wires. It's actually not a wire, it's actually a forklift, and they manipulate the ring. So it's interesting. And of course, they also showed the how to pull a rabbit out of a hat trick. Then they show the saw in the basket trick, sawing a woman in half, which you also see hundreds of times, even on animated cartoons. Like there was a famous Bugs Bunny cartoon with where Bugs is fighting with a magician, and he does the cutting Bugs in half trick. And that trick was also used in the 1987 movie Dirty Dancing, with Jennifer Grey being sawn in half. They actually did that trick in that movie with Wayne Knight, the guy who later on played Newman on Seinfeld, like almost a decade later, played Newman on Seinfeld, or like at least 5 years later, played Newman on Seinfeld. He was the magician because of Bruce Mello, who was a local DJ here in New York, did the trick where he cut Jennifer Grey in half. They did that trick. They also did a saw in a basket trick. One of the classic illusion segments that was famous in this show, plus they continued it in the 2008-2009 series, were doing the linking rings. Now, in case you know the linking rings, there was a trick on the famous Brady Bunch episode where Peter wanted to be a magician for a talent show, and he goes into a magic shop, and the guy or the salesman in the store sold Peter on the rings. They actually show that trick on the special, the linking rings, how it's done. There's a gap in one of the rings, and that's how I was able to get the rings together and pull the rings apart. Of course, the last trick, I know I'm going fast on this thing. The last trick that was shown on the original Masked Magician special was making an elephant disappear. That was the big trick they showed, how to make an elephant disappear. Which, of course, they did use, in this particular case, they actually did use smoke and mirrors to make the elephant disappear. Like I said, this special was huge at the time. And I was actually watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was running up against it. Because they do happen to have the original TV guide, which, that's how I knew the date so well, that has the special listed in here. And I should point out to the page where they have the ad, or the advertisement. Here's the actual advertisement that was in the TV guide for the Masked Magician special that aired on Fox. And that's why I knew the date, because the date is posted on here. It says November 24th, 1997. So that's how I knew the date. Cheap research, folks. It helps to do these videos. And like I said, that show was like huge. 3 days before the McPhersons disappeared, because that's the alien abduction incident in Lake County video, which will take place like 3 days later, which I recently did a review on for the 25th anniversary of that. So now I'm doing a 25th anniversary for this. And I can't believe it's been 25 years since this special originally came on the air, and I'm very, very surprised that Fox is not re-airing these shows. I don't know where other than on YouTube here, I don't know where you can see them on regular television, or if it's streaming anywhere. But it would be damn cool if for 25th anniversary to bring these shows back, to show the original specials, and since it's Thanksgiving weekends next week, instead of showing 20,000 football games, it's going to take like 20 hours to watch one game. Put these videos on, and maybe put these shows back on the air, and It is the 25th anniversary. I enjoy these shows. I don't know if anybody else remember these shows, but these shows were very, very good at the time. I do recommend people check them out here on YouTube. And another Max Magician has its own channel on here, and they show individual tricks. So please check them out if you haven't gotten the chance. So this is my review of the 25th anniversary of the Max Magician Breaking the Magician's Code, the original special. Please click on the video, please rate it, please subscribe to my channel, please forward this video to your Facebook pages. You can check out all my reviews not only on my YouTube channel, but at rallyc.com, that's all WDY.com, that's the homepage of Rally Reviewer. Please see more, and please check out all of his videos on his website. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.